Hi, I'm Duncan. I'm an IT pro and I'm exploring cryptocurrencies to diversify. And this is my story.
Welcome to Fair Go, your favourite podcast about building a better tomorrow. A podcast by the people, for the people, where we share small business stories from the business owners themselves. When you encounter unfair obstacles that are too hard to overcome on your own, remember, you don't have to do it alone. Together we can rebuild our great Southland and make Australia proud again. Join us today at fairbusinessaustralia.com.au.
Welcome to Fair Go, a podcast by the people, for the people. I have with me today a very interesting guest, and we are talking about the world of crypto. You've all heard about it. We have someone here who has dabbled in it and wants to share a little bit about his story, which I think is pretty cool because I've been dabbling in crypto myself for a couple of years now. Just invested in a couple of different cryptocurrencies, and I'm looking forward to some great returns. Now, for those of you who talk about Ponzi schemes, I would like to remind you or educate you that the dollar hasn't been gold backed for a very long time now. What's it backed by? It's not actually backed by anything. It's paper currency. Anyway, introducing Duncan from our lovely little often forgotten town of Tassie. Welcome, Duncan. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my pleasure. And well done with this podcast. Hey, I've been really impressed. Just it's really it's heartfelt. I think it's a great thing that you're doing. The emphasis on winning this through serving people, I think is really a winning strategy. Hey.
Well, that's nice. Might just cry a bit. It's been a bit of a hard road. That's okay. We digress. Okay. Let's just move on. La 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 la. Something in my eye. Thank you for the encouragement. That's very, very kind. So you're from Tasmania, and you were telling me a little bit before we pressed record that you are in IT and that your lovely wife homeschools your children. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Look, we're big believers in homeschool. It's been a blessing. It's not without sacrifice. It costs a lot. But we really encourage anyone that is thinking of it. It's really rewarding. And yeah, I'm in IT. I work here in Tassie. Look, that's been. I enjoy my job. I enjoy the technical challenge. For me, during COVID, that has meant. I'm one of the fortunate ones that I've been able to work remotely, and homeschooling. That's meant I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed being home with the kids, with my wife. So I'm part of this laptop class, which I'm fortunate, but I am, to be honest, a bit disgusted that there is this new class forming that just seems to not really care about a lot of the things that are going on. I'm horrified to hear the stories, some on your podcast and the others really only on independent media.
Right.
And there's just a real disconnect. And it's just really sad to me that here's this great body of people that for a long time have worked so hard at listening to consumers, being the ones that are creating the value. And they're just being steamrolled. So and so I'm doing my IT thing, and I enjoy that more and more. I'm just thinking that maybe I want to do like a side hustle. I have started a little bit of that, and as you say, in cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
I'm talking to the Chamber of Commerce locally here a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Their response has been pretty positive.
Wow, that's interesting that a Chamber of Commerce response would be positive to something that is not mainstream, because crypto is not mainstream. Despite the fact that many people are on that ship, it's still not a mainstream idea. So why have they been so positive, do you think?
Oh, look, I think they feel like you're right. It's not mainstream, but I think they're feeling the pinch. Inflation is becoming more and more of a reality.
Yes.
So they're feeling that.
Yes.
And I go through the, a little bit of economic history with gold and that sort of thing. Crypto is similar in a way, trying to become sound money. There are a few advantages there in that it can be. Actually, I've got a website, Duncanomics.com, which probably goes into more
Duncanomics.
of the technical details.
Awesome.
So I've got 3 videos there I'd encourage anyone to check out. My emphasis is less about, the number go up sort of hyper speculative scene. The cryptocurrencies, they're virtual. So they really only get their value from real goods and services, from entrepreneurs and businesses.
Right.
And over the years, there's just been, it's lost that spirit a bit. And there's actually technical reasons for that, which I'll get more into the weeds in my video. So, I'm thinking of doing a bit more of that. Look, I don't know if it's valuable to businesses, and that's okay, but I suppose I'm just putting it out there. If anyone's more interested in, look, I'm not a financial advisor, and I'd probably steer people against just going to buy it for the number go up. But it's really about training and showing people how easy it is to get involved. Essentially all you have to do is download an app on your phone and be willing to, accept a little bit of risk. Businesses can accept it.
Yes, and I did that just a moment ago. You told me which app to download, and I do have my own a different app with different crypto, but I wanted to, take it for a test spin, and it was very, very easy to download. And we'll go through that process in just a moment. But I know that there are people sitting on here going, well, I've got my dollar, and why should I go across to crypto? What's the point? And I think it's lovely that you're being so balanced, because certainly we don't want anyone on the podcast that claims that you're going to solve all your problems overnight, because that's, as business people, we absolutely know that there's no such thing as an overnight success. Unless there is someone else losing out, then you might have an overnight success, but it's always at the cost of somebody. And as business owners, we know that we have to work very, very hard for the level of success that we get. But I think rather than asking those questions about, well, is it going to make me a millionaire overnight? I think really what you're bringing to the conversation right now is that we need to be far more educated about finances overall, and we need to take a lot more responsibility for our own financial growth. Gone are the days when you would go to work for 40 years, get your regular paycheck, get that bonus at the end of the year, and then retire, and everything's hunky-dory, and you probably have a heart attack 5 years later and die, and there's your life. We have a very, very different state of affairs now, that people live longer, they're having to work longer. The inflation is an issue, absolutely. I mean, hopefully we won't go in the same direction as America. They have their worst inflation there for at least 40 years. But I think it's really good that you're talking about, it's actually taking control of your resources and looking at diversification of your resources. Now, whether that be a side hustle with a time for money job, or a side hustle with, moving into something else like an e-commerce type thing, or moving into cryptocurrency. Really what you're bringing to the table is diversification, which is actually very, very smart. So my question for you right now, because you have been balanced so far, and I just want to make all the podcast listeners very aware of that we're not selling, we're not trying to spruik cryptocurrency here. We're having a conversation about that you need to look at different elements of your life, and you can't just stay in a Netflix box and assume that the government is going to take care of you, because they're not. I strongly doubt that there will even be a pension by the time it comes for us to retire. So having said all that, I will dismount off of my soapbox, and I will ask you, your crypto journey, do you think that, or did you start that because of COVID, or were you already dabbling in that before COVID, and it's now become apparent that taking control of your finances and diversifying is actually a very wise thing to do right now, as clearly someone who's an entrepreneur?
No, so it was pre-COVID, only a little bit. My blog, Duncanomics.blog, I've done a little bit of blogging, just mainly around technology and central banking.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really what got me into it. I think that probably stemmed, back from originally getting a mortgage and sort of trying to understand interest rates and that sort of thing. So and then that's led to more through COVID. That has sort of brought to light, I suppose, the need to potentially diversify, have different options for income and that sort of thing. And just with this parallel economy potentially, I want to be around people that value freedom. And if I can do that through serving other people, that's where I want to be.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, money is just money is an energy that is agreed upon by two parties. We could just as well exchange pineapples for things if we decided to, or pieces of Lego. Whatever is agreed upon is where the power lies. And so you say potentially a parallel economy. It's an absolute foregone conclusion that we'll move to a parallel economy. It's just when the masses decide to move away from the dollar and move across to the crypto, whether that be Bitcoin or Pulse or Coin or whatever that looks like, it's when the masses move across. And what we were talking about before, you were saying that Dan Andrews, God bless his little cotton sock soul. We just love him so much. You were saying about having the vaxxed economy, and they were all just supposed to fall into line with that. Well, I don't know if Dan Andrews would, on his own steam, be able to make enough money to pay all of us if we were his employees, and we're not. We're the ones that make the money to pay him, and then the government takes our money in tax to pay for different things. So at some stage, when we do all agree that our masters are no longer our masters, they were always our servants, and we just forgot that for a defined period of time, people will move into other parts of crypto. Now, do you think for the uneducated, I'm just looking at crypto now, I'm just dabbling in it, I'm not really sure what I'm doing. Do you think that there is a particular thought that should be in the front of the person's mind when they're looking? Like, should they be looking at Bitcoin, or should they, because there are so many cryptos out there? Is it because most people are using Bitcoin that it happens to be more powerful? What do you say to that?
So it's complicated. I think that used to be the case. What bootstrapped Bitcoin was its merchant adoption. Like that's, as I said before, that's where the real value comes. And it's getting into the weeds a little bit, but Bitcoin's somewhat archaic in the tech behind the scenes. So it's basically become more expensive to transact in it. So, it's easier to use a credit card. And unfortunately, that has meant a lot of businesses have left. And I go a little bit into that in my videos. So that, that's meant that there's been a lot more competition. Bitcoin Cash is a fork of Bitcoin, and there's been more forks since then as well. Of other competing currencies. So it's a question mark on, I suppose, which crypto they're all competing over each other. And my advice is nothing to do with what you should go out and purchase, but I would just say, more from a personal perspective, if you want to know which one has a good chance, just try using it in your daily life. Like, I think, most people, if they were going to get, $10 of Bitcoin to try it out, and they go to the first coffee shop that accepts it, that they're going to be pretty annoyed if they're going to pay $1 in a transaction fee. Pretty quickly you can, discover where its utility is. I think that probably answers that question.
Yeah, that's good. And do you ever see yourself going full time with crypto?
I guess I would just say if it was, it would be more around consulting of implementation in business.
Sure.
I'm not that interested in the speculation side of things.
Sure.
So but yeah, just helping people with it. And to be honest, if you're a small bricks and mortar store, there's not really much to do. It is permissionless. It's probably more when you get to larger scales, processing a lot of transactions. Otherwise, maybe the few one-off consultancy can be helpful.
Yeah,
it's a scary thing, to get into. So,
well, everything new is scary. Business is scary, and people that have gone into business for themselves and managed to survive past 12 months have got spines of steel. And so I think they can afford to look at something that is much less scary than going into business for oneself. Now, you say you don't want to get speculative. However, I would like to get anecdotally speculative. Let's just say that the large majority of business owners in Australia decided en masse as part of an alliance that they were not going to favour the dollar anymore. They were going to favour the blah blah coin, whatever coin that might be. What would that actually, anecdotally, I know you're not a financial advisor, and we've made that very clear on this podcast. This is entertainment purposes only, just dipping our toe in the water. What would that look like for the Australian economy if all of a sudden everybody had most of their finances backed by crypto and not by the Australian dollar?
I mean, that it would accelerate inflation. But maybe I would put it a different way. You see, you don't have to, let's say every business or just a large portion of businesses, if they could decide just to accept crypto, you can accept crypto without the risk. So there's payment processes like Go Crypto, for example. They make, they're like an FPOS terminal. So they've got FPOS in them, but then they'll have a number of cryptos. They can process directly into, convert that to Australian dollars. So it doesn't have to be, a real destructive process. And I think the way it's going to work, it's going to be more of an organic transfer as people find it useful. Consumers will choose it voluntarily. So I don't think it really needs to be, and I hope it isn't, a destructive thing. Well,
I don't see personally why it would be, because you still have the same amount of resources. You're just choosing a different energy format to buy and sell those resources. And I actually have been looking at the crypto space for about 2 months now, actually for Fair Business Australia, for our directory. We are in discussions now to actually move across to a marketplace, which is very exciting. And we are in discussions about bringing a crypto on. I won't say which one yet. But as part of my discussions, I became aware of, and I might be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'm happy to say, but I became aware of that the fees for transactions are actually much less / almost zero compared to FPOS terminal fees with the dollar. Is that correct?
Correct for a lot of cryptos. That's right. Yeah. So like Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin used to be, less than a cent. Bitcoin Cash now is around about, 0.3 of a cent. And, that's their target is to always remain low. And most other cryptos are real cheap. The other thing is, the benefit of eliminating chargebacks like that you get on credit cards. You're effectively settling instantly, or at least in 10 minutes until the next block time. So, and the biggest thing that most people get into it for is really that they're deflationary. So when you're comparing it to the dollar, in theory, if more people are buying into it, especially if it's real economic activity, then you're going to it's going to store your value. So it's actually going to go up against the dollar over time.
Which is where I knew we were going to get to in this conversation, which is why I chose to come at it anecdotally, because it's actually a win-win-win once the masses agree on pineapples anecdotally. So, okay. So let's come back to, you told me about this app, and I did take a moment to download it. I'm going to show it to the audience here. For those of you on podcasts, sorry, you won't be able to see this, but those of you watching on video, you will. So I downloaded this in a few seconds flat, and there's the little icon there. You can see, yep, I've downloaded it. Very good. And what I'm going to do real time, so you'll find that on the App Store. It's just Bitcoin Wallet. And we're just going to have a look. Now, again, this is not financial advice. This is just to get you guys dipping your toe in the water and dabbling with the possibility of maybe at some stage organically moving away from the dollar, because we've already seen that the dollar is very fragile and it is backed by goods and services. And if there are no services because of, lockdowns, 2 years of lockdowns, that's where inflation comes from. That's where a recession comes from. And the lack of goods and services eventually leads to a depression. And we really do want to avoid another depression in this country. So I've opened up my app and we are ready to go. So instruct me, Mr. Duncan.
So you should be able to see a receive button on there.
Yes.
If you select that. And let's select Bitcoin Cash, because that's
Bitcoin Cash. Okay, so for those of you who are watching on video right now, Bitcoin Cash is the green one. Bitcoin is the orange one. So it's really easy to see. Okay, and it's come up with a QR code. So what am I going to do with the QR code now?
Yeah, so the QR code, and there's an address underneath.
Yes.
That's your address. So that's what I want to send it to. So if we're in person, I'd scan it. So if you just put your QR code up to the screen,
anybody can use this QR code and send me as much money as they like?
Correct, yes. So I'll just scan it here. And yep, I've got it here. So that's enough. So I've got it on my phone.
Awesome.
I just say $5 worth of Bitcoin Cash, which is 0.00111. I'll click send and done. And it's
I think the microphone just picked that up. Love those little sounds. Okay, and what do I do now? Look at my wallet. Oh, so this is in USD, folks. It didn't actually take that much money off, but USD got $3.57, which is around $5 Australian. Gosh, we might end up with a much better exchange rate the way the US is going right now, but cool. So that's it. That was it. Literally, if I had have timed how long it took me to download the app and do that, that would have been about 45 seconds. So anybody can dip their toe in the water with about 45 seconds and then just look at it. Just see what happens. Just start to learn the interface and just take a look, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And, if you were a business owner or an individual, you can then take that to another business and that accepts that cryptocurrency.
Yep.
Or if you need to pay suppliers, that's what you might go to an exchange to convert that to Australian dollars again.
Yep.
You can use a payment processor to do that instantly.
Yep.
Takes a bit of the risk out of it, but potentially takes the reward out of it as well, because it is deflationary. So.
Cool. So for those of you watching, we'll have the address above. For those of you listening on podcasts, the address will be in the description. So you can go across to Duncan's website and watch some of his videos and get to your toe a little bit more, maybe up to the ankle. Maybe just get your ankle in and learn a little bit. Again, this is not financial advice. This is just story-based entrepreneurial education, really, so that you can start to explore different things. We're having an insurance broker video going up very, very shortly. I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, all about mitigating risk and why the jab is actually quite horrifying for business owners, potentially 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the track. So you definitely don't want to miss that. So just one more piece of evidence that I want to talk to about Bitcoin, because people will say, well, Bitcoin is just somewhere in the ether. It doesn't exist. Now, this is another podcast that I have lined up in the works to interview this chap. He's actually from the Northern Territory, And he spoke to me a few days ago. He sent me an email. He forwarded the email from his branch bank manager saying that, thank you, Mr. John Doe. Thank you for paying off your house. Congratulations. Love it, love it. And no, you can't have your title deed because we don't keep them anymore. Everything is digital now. So for those people saying that crypto is just in the ether and it's digital and it doesn't exist, you might want to look into your house deed and find out if you can actually get a paper copy of that. And I would strongly recommend that you hound the bank manager until you do that, because that is actually very concerning, that you've just spent 30, 40 years paying off your house and it's only in the ether that you own it. That's concerning. So I think I've made my point with crypto, and that people should probably start to diversify. So let's go to the other side for Tasmania. On the other side of COVID, once we are out of this and we are rebuilding, what does that look like for your little state down there? What does it look like for your town? What does it look like for your business, for the Chamber of Commerce? What does it look like on the other side of COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm real hopeful of sound money is sort of a big thing, as I've explained. I think this can, it's been devastating for so many people. I'm optimistic long term that it's just been a really good lesson for people. I've as part of my blog is, talking about political philosophy and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I've sort of, maybe I rant too much to my wife sometimes. And, but, she's gone through this and suddenly realized, okay, yes, this is what you've been talking about. This is how those at the top really view what a social contract is and that sort of thing. So I think it's been a wake-up call for a lot of people. We just, there's that 40% or something like that are still, on the fence there. And I think, like your podcast, like I was saying earlier, if we can serve people and have a fairly optimistic view of the future, I think that will go a long way. I think we can win over that 40%.
Yeah.
So I'm long-term, optimistic. Already here, that in Tassie, the rhetoric from the politicians actually has been a bit refreshing.
Really? How so? What are they saying?
Like they've said, we need to treat it like the flu.
Wow.
And we've been fortunate in Tassie. I think I'm really sad that the tourism industry has had it hard here.
Yeah.
Which isn't right. It isn't right, but it has meant that most people haven't bared the cost.
Yeah.
And I think that means, that's an easy way out for the politicians. They seem to be turning it all down because they know they're not on the ringer, like they haven't. But I'm still critical of a lot of it. But so yeah.
So you're optimistic. Good. And what about your business? Where do you see that going?
Look, I don't know. I don't know if people will find that valuable, and that's okay. I do really enjoy my job, what I do, being employed. My employer is great. It's a medium-sized business, so I don't have anything to lose there. So that's fine. I'm just putting the invitation out there, I suppose, to be a face if that helps people. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a big money maker, I suppose. That's fine. So yeah.
I think that's really refreshing. I think that's actually the way that sales conversations should be had, because business people are always talking sales. We're always talking money because that's what we do. It's in our blood. We're always thinking about how can we use resources to better our own lives, to better the lives of our staff, to better the lives of our communities. And we're actually going to trade out of this pandemic. That's how we're going to rebuild Australia, is on the backs, as always, of the middle class, because it's always the middle class that rebuild after wars, that rebuild after everything, because we're the ones that make the money. We're the ones that have the know-how to put the resources into place. So I think it's really good that that you are approachable in that way and really getting away from that slick 80s used car salesman that we all cringe at and we've all had a gut full of, and we've probably all been burnt by. I know I have a couple of times. So, well, thank you so much. We'd love to get you back on the podcast in a few months' time to see what's happening in the world of crypto. Probably might get you on when we actually launch our own crypto on the platform. That would be kind of exciting. We'll keep that quite under wraps until we're ready to launch. So is there anything else? Do you have any advice to share with business owners or even lay people who are watching or listening to this podcast right now?
Yeah, look, just like I said before, I think just by serving other people, I think that's going to win this war.
Yeah, awesome.
But thanks for listening.
So good. Thank you so much, and look forward to hearing how everything goes for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Have you got an inspiring story to tell? Register your business now for your chance to be featured on our Fair Go podcast. Ready to lend a helping hand? That's great. You can chip in through the website. Remember, 100% profit goes directly back into local small business. Together, we can rebuild this great Southland for ourselves and the next generation. Go to fairbusinessaustralia.com.au.